Amateur golf in Nebraska extends well beyond the past 50 years. In some aspects, starting with an amateur association that formed in 1905 in conjunction with the Nebraska Amateur, the championship grew in popularity and prestige over the years.
The first really multiple winner was Sam Reynolds, who captured 7 state titles. Par Sam was a pillar of Omaha golf and of Nebraska golf. Then of course Johnny Goodman came along, won 3 Nebraska amateurs, 28, 9, 30, and 31. Rod Bliss was a contemporary of his, and then in the 40s and 50s you had a series of winners, but then the next standout was Bob Astleford, who won 8 state titles. From the 50s to the 60s. Bob was, again, a pillar of both Omaha and Nebraska golf.
But eventually the amateur body needed some help, and in 1949, the Nebraska PGA stepped in to keep the championship alive. After running the championship for more than a decade and changing the format to medal play, or stroke play as we know it today, the PGA began to struggle with finding sites to host the tournament. Golf in Nebraska needed structure, and in stepped Omaha's Bob Fraser and his friends. On November 11, 1966, Fraser led a meeting at Lincoln Country Club in which the Nebraska Amateur Golf Association was established. Fraser was voted president with Lincoln's Larry Romju his vice president. Omaha's Don Stern was named secretary-treasurer, and other elected board members included Howard McCollister of Omaha, Tom Ludwig of Lincoln, P.M. Anderson of Lincoln, Del Ryder of Grand Island, Don Bridge of Norfolk, and Al Blessing of Hastings. Fraser, a 3-time Nebraska amateur champion, and the board of directors were tasked with 2 objectives: give the amateur a shot in the arm and accentuate junior golf. Success followed quickly. In its first attempt at conducting the amateur, the association locked down a premier site and crowned a grand champion. Omaha Country Club played host to what would be Bob Astleford's 8th and final Nebraska amateur title in 1967. It was also his 6th straight. Both are records for the amateur. Astleford did it in spectacular fashion too. Just a couple years earlier, he had completed an incredible comeback from 7 strokes back in the final round to win the 1965 title in a playoff over Matt Tabor of Lincoln. In 1967, it was almost inevitable. Despite being 6 strokes back to start the final round, with a host of contenders in his way, Astleford leaped the field and finished in a tie with Lincoln's Charlie Borner. Astleford went on to win his title on the first playoff hole. The following year, 1968, the association began expanding its competitive schedule. The Nebraska Junior Amateur was introduced and initially won by Omaha's Bob Swan at Holmes Golf Course in Lincoln. Interestingly, the championship began with match play transitioning to stroke play, with 32 players competing in a match play bracket until only 8 players were remaining. The format then made the switch to stroke play, as the top 8 players played 36 holes to crown the champion. Also in 1968, the association introduced the Nebraska Match Play Championship. The first Nebraska Amateur in 1905 was match play, and that format was used until 1956 when it switched to stroke play. When the association staged the Nebraska Match Play in 1968, it included only the top 16 finishers from the previous year's amateur. Lincoln's Tim Bateman defeated Norfolk's Don Bridge 4-3 to win the first title. Del Ryder eventually took over as executive director and served in that role until 1988. The association progressed significantly under the guidance of Ryder. In 1973, Ryder announced a statewide handicapping system to be included in membership of the association. A few years later, Ryder arranged for golf courses in Nebraska to be rated for the first time. A system developed by the United States Golf Association was used by a team from the University of Minnesota to rate Nebraska courses.
And back then, he would send a typewritten list of the courses they rated during the year, and kind of a master list. Just the technology too. You can do so much more than they did at the time, and the advent of slope, I mean, that changed the complexion of course rating. And it just couldn't be a one or two man operation. You had to get others involved. And, Dell from Grand Island, he gave it some stability. He wasn't the first executive director of the NGA, but he was the first to be prominent.
In 1988, the association entered a new era as former Lincoln Journal-Star sports editor Virgil Parker took the reins from Ryder as the executive director. Under Parker, the association continued to grow in numbers and scope, adding several championships along the way. Long known as the Nebraska Amateur Golf Association, the amateur was dropped from the moniker, becoming the NGA as it is known today. The inaugural Nebraska Junior Match Play Championship was conducted in 1990 at Ashland Country Club and won by Kearney's Chad Lydiot. In 1999, the Nebraska Senior Amateur Championship and the Nebraska Mid-Amateur Championship were conducted for the first time. Beatrice Country Club hosted the championships in conjunction with Lincoln's Bob Hewitt winning the senior title and Friends' David Klaus winning the mid-amateur title. Parker served as executive director until he passed away in 2001.
I think golf in the state changed with the advent of Firethorn coming on board with Dick Youngscap's vision back in 1985. That gave the state a legitimate championship golf course at the time, gave it a little, don't want to say notoriety, but a place on the map with the Pete Dye course, and that started to fuel other courses. And without Firethorn, you don't get Sandhills Golf Club. And at the same time, the NGA was going from basically a basement office or small office concept with Dill Ryder and Carol and his wife, who was running the Women's Association at the time, to Virgil Parker, who took it to another level.
Craig Ames, who started as a USGA PJ Boatwright intern with the NGA in 1997, took over as executive director in 2001 and continues to serve in that role today. Under Ames, the association has further expanded its championship schedule while also adding other competitive outlets for players of all ages and skill levels. After starting with just one championship in 1966, the Nebraska Golf Association now conducts 11 state championships, as well as qualifying for 8 USGA national championships, including the U.S. Open and U.S. Amateur. In addition, there are 3 select team events, an inter-club program for member clubs, a fall junior series, and an intercollegiate tournament.
This is a big-time organization, and I think that the level of play, it's not an afterthought. It's not just a weekend tournament. These are big deal championships, and I think that as golf got bigger, so did the NGA. The NGA took on more things. You've got all these championships now. You've added Mid-Am, you've added seniors, really done a lot with junior golf and promoting the growth of the game. That you couldn't have done that just with Del Ryder by himself. You couldn't have done that just with Virgil Parker. But with each step, the NGA has gotten better.
The original board made junior golf a priority, and that is still true today, as juniors in the state now have an unmatched amount of opportunities to learn, play, and compete. The association conducts 5 junior championships in the Fall Junior Series and also partners with the Nebraska PGA section to present the Nebraska Junior Golf Tour, which offers over 70 competitive events for juniors of all ages and skill levels. The 2 organizations also conduct the state's Drive, Chip, and Putt qualifiers, giving juniors a chance to make it to the finals at Augusta National Golf Club. The NGA also partners with the Nebraska School Activities Association to assist with the conduct of the state high school championships and also provide regional rules of golf seminars for high school teams and coaches. Outside of competitive golf, the NGA also partners with the United States Golf Association to provide assistance and cooperation with administering the rules of golf, the rules of amateur status, and the USGA handicap system, providing USGA course and slope rating services and assisting with committee appointments, in addition to the qualifying mentioned earlier. At the heart of the Nebraska Golf Association's growth is its now 23,000 individual members and 155 member clubs, and through their support, the NGA has been able to make its impact on the game and will continue to strengthen it for many years to come.